Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of.
Kiddo.
My name is Hans,
I'm Edward.
and we are your hosts for now and forevermore.
Or until I finally find the pot of gold underneath the sand I've been looking for,
The fabled scroll of truth, right?
Yeah.
Listen, speaking of pot of gold, excuse me. Last week, when it was my parents' anniversary, we actually saw the most incredible, fully arced rainbow, and it was just such a special thing, to signify the day. Anyway, before we get into the personal aspects of the podcast and our delicious content, if you are one of our regular listeners, welcome back, bitches.
So,
If you are new to Gettle, welcome to one of the internet's premier places for gaming, entertainment, technology, and lifestyle. News, reviews, and previews, all wrapped up in a wonderful...
bundle of joy.
Oh, is somebody expecting?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of.
Okay. Well, Gettle certainly isn't expecting, so not that I'm aware of anyway either. Anyway, Edward, how are you doing?
I'm good.
That's good.
The usual. How about you?
Well, you're not falling over or anything this week, eh? So
No, fortunately not.
Yeah, good. Can't really complain too much, with the exception of general poor service delivery. Eating away at both of us, I would imagine, and making us upset for no apparent reason. But hey, I guess that's just part of living in Africa.
Yep. Yeah, that's third world countries.
Third world country living, y'all. So,
Yeah.
welcome everyone to season 2, episode 12. By the time you read this, it will be Star Wars. I mean, by the time you listen to this or watch this, I have Vamers on the mind. We've been doing so much writing recently. It will be Star Wars week. So may the 4th be with you wherever you are.
Yeah.
With that in mind, as per normal, we're going to go into some reviews before delicious content and then NSFW, as is normally the case for every episode of Giddle. So with that in mind,
Yeah.
Ed, news of the world.
Yes.
That is a title of a film on Netflix.
Okay, I was super lost for a sec. Like, did I lose my notes?
So we watched this. It's a long 2-hour movie. It stars Tom Hanks in the leading role and maybe one or two other people along the way. But given how he is the primary person that the entire story is focused on, he's really the only one that I really need to mention. Also because I think he was Oscar nominated for this role. Now, News of the World basically takes place in a late 1800s America, and it's whereby Tom Hanks, who is a former military person, goes from city to city on horseback and reads the news of the world. Now, where the film comes into play, it's whereby he one day, while going from one town to another, stumbles upon a little blonde German girl. And as many people know, America was built on being, or rather, was built on the backs of immigrants and unfortunately slaves as well. But for the case of this movie, immigrants. And in so doing, he finds this young little girl and she speaks Navajo Indian. And he finds it odd because he finds papers on her and it proves that she's from German descent. So obviously, you put two and two together, something happened to her family, and she was obviously raised by the local Indian populations, which the movie also does a good job of addressing how they were unfairly massacred. How it is, unfortunately, with many, world history. So what then happens is he goes on this journey where he takes this little girl with him and goes from town to town through a series of unfortunate incidents, and eventually gets her to where she needs to be, but things are not as they seem. And I won't say much else, but you would kind of guess what kind of happens in the end. Now, much like many of the movies we've spoken about in the last several episodes, this film is very much a snapshot into the lives of these people versus it being something like an Avengers blockbuster, where you have a start, a middle, and an end, and then, these arcs close off and so on and so forth. Meaning that the way that it ends, yes, it closes off an arc, but it also leaves it open to interpretation. But in a lovely way, though. It does have a feel good ending. The only reason why I haven't rated it as good or exceptional, and where I've sort of just labeled it as average, is because of that very reason. I'm all for snapshots of roles or of snippets of life turned to cinema, like Minari, which was very good. But I suppose where this one falls flat a little bit is in the sense that it's based on a true story or anything like that. It's purely fictional, and obviously it has a few embellishments here and there along the way, but overall it's very good, and Tom Hanks does the role justice. It is a very slow burn movie with a feel good ending, and I suppose it's a decent watch. That's what I would say.
That's cool.
Ed, do you have
Yeah,
any
Tom
questions about the
Hanks.
film?
Not really. I just uh, it seems like Tom Hanks, he likes to do this weird like single looks into people's lives thing
Yes, yes.
that he's been doing all of these
You know,
years.
it like I mean, when I say that, I don't mean that necessarily in a negative. Like
No, yeah, of course.
Castaway was phenomenal. But
Yeah.
you see, in that role, however, it's very different because that had a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Yes. Yeah.
Where it comes full circle, and the entire movie is literally on this single isolated character.
Mm.
Whereas this film, it touches upon a variety of people. So it's not just Tom Hanks's, you know, it's not his story of evolution or
Yeah,
progression.
it's a movie, but it's very much a flat linear, just a chapter.
Yes.
I would
Look,
say it
look, it
sounds like.
is good, and a part of me feels a bit bad for saying average, but also at the same time, I often don't watch any of these things alone. I watch with my parents 90% of the time. And I
Mm.
like to hear their opinions as well. So, and they were both like, my dad fell asleep and my mom was like, "Is that it?"
Listen, if dads don't fall asleep while watching shows, are they
Right?
even
Yeah.
dads?
Thank
Like,
you. Thank you. Well said. Well said. That is very, very, very true, by the way. All right. So going from a a decent average film to something that is very good and also very different. It is The Mandalorian season
oh,
2.
so good, so good.
What a great show. Not
Yeah,
exceptional, but very, very, very good.
yeah.
For those who might not know about the series, it's called The Mandalorian. It is on Disney Plus, and it basically looks at snapshots. 'Cause again, once again, and I'll get back to this point in a little bit, of a Mandalorian who needs to transport a alien baby by the name of Groku, who obviously
Very
has a
good.
lineage to Yoda from the Star Wars universe, and why he is important to the franchise. Now, season 2 for me surpassed season 1 because season 1, I suppose, was more the groundwork for what is to come, setting up the Mandalorian, his backstory, to do with his armor and his creed, and so on and so forth. Whereas season 2 had a little bit more leeway of experimenting with introducing even more characters and more narrative arcs. And
Mm.
in this sense, we see some more rebel Mandalorians who don't believe in the creed that he does, as well as Asako Tano, who is just
Ahsoka Tano.
Ahsoka Tano. She is just badass. Now, I
Yeah,
will unfortunately
so good.
admit that although I watched the Clone Wars, I haven't finished it or seen all of it, but I
Hmm.
do know she's a major character there. But I will say that Rosario Dawson's portrayal of her is just, it's a chef's kiss.
Yeah. In a way, I feel like obviously this is a much older Asako, um, and in a way, I feel like Rosario Dawson's character is the older version of Ashley Eckstein's character, who
Okay.
is also she
Look,
voices Ahsoka,
it makes
and
sense
I
because
it
of the
looks so
where
good.
it takes place. You know that. Do you know when
Mhm.
Mandalorian takes place?
When? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
After
so
episode 6.
yes, yes. So therefore that makes sense because the original Clone Wars takes place during the Clone Wars, which is between,
Yes.
if my understanding is correct, episodes 3 and 4. So
Yes.
naturally it would be a much older
No, no, 2 and 3.
Asako, right?
Yeah, it's much older Ahsoka.
But she's so good
So
though.
it even
So good.
feels like like listening to Ashley Eckstein, she sounds like a young girl
Mm.
versus Rosario Dawson, who looks like a grown woman, and
She's
Ahsoka
wise in
is a
her
grown
ways and strong in the
yes,
force and
and
kicks
she's amazing with
ass.
her white ass lightsabers. So good.
Now, the reason why I say Mandalorian is only good and
Mm,
sort of misses the mark for exceptional is because I am personally someone who prefers shows that are serial in nature and not procedural. And by that, I mean, I like narrative heavy stories where if you miss an episode, you don't know what's going on. That's the kind of TV I generally enjoy watching because I feel it is taking up a lot of my time. So it should be somewhat of an investment. That's kind of how I feel. Now, of course, I don't mean that for everything. Like, I'm also a big fan of sitcoms, where, you could miss like 4 episodes in a row and you'll still know what's going on. But of course, they're for different things. So, like, a sitcom is more for when you're eating and you want to laugh a little bit or just want to relax, not really think too much. Whereas for like real serious viewing, if we could even call it that, I like to be really invested in the characters and the stories and the arcs. Now, Mandalorian overall does an exceptional job of setting up the universe and building up Mando's character. However, although it does have an overall arcing narrative, and that specifically has to do with Grogu, if you were to miss an episode or two along the way, it wouldn't influence the outcome of the story.
much.
Now, yes, they generally hint at things along the way, but it, I did it, and I did it by accident, where I accidentally skipped episode 7 out of the eight episodes in season 2, and I didn't even notice that the episode was that we didn't watch it. Eventually, we did go back, and it was really just filler, and more not really filler, but a little bit more of character building, I suppose, for Mando. But what I also mean is that every single episode within the Mandalorian, weirdly enough, can also be self-contained as an enjoyable story.
It's a chapter, yeah.
Yeah, so for me, that takes away a little bit. Like, I would much prefer if it was very narrative driven to the point where, like, if you miss one episode, you wouldn't know what's going on. And then you get what I'm saying, right? Kind of like a little bit like Game of Thrones in a way. Although we don't speak about that show anymore
The
for
thing
reasons.
is, I feel like the way John Favreau managed to build the Mandalorian, the chapter driven content that he does, every chapter is self contained, yes, and yes, you can skip maybe 1 or 2 episodes and still know what's going on. I feel like the way he built it, that I wouldn't change Mandalorian and make it more narrative driven. Let's say like The Witcher,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
a good example, I guess, because it's unique in that this is Mandalorian, and I think that's what gives it its charm.
I
I
don't know.
haven't
You
seen
see,
many other shows like that.
what do you mean? You
Like,
look at any
like
CW show and you have a self contained story within every episode.
no, you don't. It's only
Most of the
always the
time you
first
do.
few episodes of a season. Those are always flavor of the week, and then it goes into the
There we go.
6 episode
Flavor of the
thing.
week.
Yes,
That was the
but that's the
expression.
thing. Mandalorian is not this though, because every episode has a little bit of story build up to it.
Not enough.
And it
This is my issue with it, and that's literally the story of the week that you've mentioned now. Because think of it like CSI, right? This is a great
mhm,
example. If you don't want to look at it from CW, even though I feel it's the same way,
it's
it's very
not
much
the
where
same.
it's very much where there is an overarching story, okay, and they touch upon it within every couple of episodes every now and again. And of course, it's different. I mean, if you talk about something like CSI, it's like 24 episodes, so it's very, very long. So there is always something overarching which they deal with at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the season. But then you don't need to watch any of the other episodes in order to really know what's going on. And I feel Mando's the same way, and that to me is why I wouldn't call it exceptional.
See, I don't feel it's that way. I don't- like yes, I get what you're saying in that every episode is self-contained. I understand that, but I also feel like every episode has enough building,
You see,
enough
I don't think so. And,
adding
and
to
and
it.
the reason why I bring that up is because, like I said, I totally missed episode 7. All right.
Mm.
Now, if that were true, then I would say that I would have, missed something in episode 8 from episode 7. Whereas I went back and I watched episode 7 and there was almost nothing that push the story in any way. As a matter of fact, I would have called episode 7 filler for for a pretty decent season because it didn't really offer much in terms of character, not even character building or progression. It was really just a means of saying, okay, well, this is how we find the coordinates, which could have been explained away within one sentence in a future episode. However, as a self contained episode, it was highly enjoyable.
But would you have something explained away in one sentence, or would you just see that
Yes,
happen?
because I felt that a half an hour dedicated to getting that one fact was a waste of time.
So in that using that logic, Rogue One was a waste of time.
Rogue One is not the same story. Rogue
It's
One adds
that's
to the
just getting
canon
the
of Star Wars.
coordinates.
It's not the same
And
thing.
so does this. It adds to Mando's canon. It adds to his character, and it explains
Yes,
a
you're
character that
talking
now
about the season as a
lives.
whole. I'm talking about one individual episode. And
Yes,
in my
in that
opinion, that
season.
one single episode didn't do enough, even from a character progression perspective, to make a difference overall, which is why, in my opinion, I wouldn't give it exceptional. If you want to rate it exceptional,
Okay.
Edward, by all means, go ahead.
This thing is, I don't think it's exceptional. I
Then what are
just don't
your
think
reasons for
it's
not? Because for me, that's the big one.
because this is not a show I'll necessarily go back to.
Wait, hold on.
It's a great show, but I wouldn't be calling it exceptional by any means. There are better shows out there. There is a higher standard of show out there, such as The Witcher, such as, in my opinion, Game of
Okay,
Thrones.
but hold on. But why would you say that that is of a higher caliber than Mando? Because I think Mando is of a very high production quality.
Because I feel like the subject material is better. I feel like the acting is better. I feel
Okay,
like
you
the
see, but
story
now
is better.
when you say subject material, doesn't that then again go back to the point that I was trying to make, whereby
No,
it's an easy watch.
that
Instead
doesn't.
of it being something that you'd actually want to invest your time in because of the self-contained nature of the show.
No, The Boys is an easy watch, and that's exceptional.
No, yeah, but that's not self-contained. And The Boys is not an easy watch. The
But
Boys
see,
has incredible
self-contained.
like stuff in the background.
But it being self-contained is not why I would call it good, or exceptional for that matter. That doesn't matter to me. I
Okay,
just
well,
think
it's fine. I
it's.
don't really understand your point, so I think we should just move on to the next series,
Yeah,
unless you want to elaborate further.
I just feel like there are better shows out there, and that's why this is underneath those.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So going on to another show, which is also just good and not exceptional, but for I would imagine entirely different reasons, and that is Netflix's Shadow and Bone.
Hmm.
So this is one that I saw a trailer for a while back. It looked incredible because it just seemed like oh gosh, I don't want to say it. Everybody wants a new Game of Thrones fix. Okay, that's what we're all looking for. And unfortunately, no one is providing it. But this kind of looked like that with a little bit more of a not sci-fi element, but like magical element, because they never really explored it nicely in Game of Thrones the way that everybody wanted it to. Even though they kept alluding to. Anyway, I'm not gonna go on a binge on why Game of Thrones is an issue. So, so Shadow and Bone is based on a book series, and that is both a positive and a negative. As we all know, content that is often adapted from a book to any other kind of media, including games, although games are a little bit less, on that spectrum, often fail to really, capture everything available within the text. Although they do generally great jobs of it, like Twilight Saga was very good, Harry Potter's been very good, Hunger Games was decent. Um, I feel Shadow and Bone does a decent job overall. Now, I haven't read the books, and so I'm not offering commentary as somebody who's read the books, meaning that I'm not going to tell you if because obviously I would assume books are better, but you get what I'm saying, though, right? I'm not
Yeah, yeah,
looking at it from that perspective, so I'm not going to critique it that way. So I'm going to critique it from somebody who knows very little about it and then decided to watch the show and enjoy it. So the little bit that I understand from it, and this is one of the main issues with the show, is that they don't do enough world and character building.
yeah.
So
Hmm.
they throw you in, And they mention stuff along the way, but there, in my personal opinion, just isn't enough to illustrate why we should care about certain characters and also what exactly is going on.
It
You
it
know,
it sounds like they kind of banked on the fact that people already read the book.
this. So while watching, it's very clear that they're showing the primary narrative within the books, but they
Hmm.
don't do a good enough job of explaining a lot of the things along the way. You know, like in this world, there are people called Grisha, and Grisha have abilities. Now, they
Hmm.
do a fairly decent job of explaining where that comes from and how it came about in this world and so on and so forth. But certain things are never explained. Like one of them is the main character, who is Alina Starkov, portrayed by Jessie May Lee. And in the show, she's often referred to as a shoe, not shoe like the shoe that you wear, but I assume shoe as in SHU. Now, it is never,
Hmm.
not once, explained in throughout the entire series what a shoe is, where the shoe come from, or why it's bad that she is a part shoe. Other than the fact that that people who are shoe, and I'm assuming it's a race of person, are just not liked. It's never addressed.
Well, if the shoe fits.
Well, yeah. Look, do you get what I mean? Though, so like, it was this
Yeah,
one
yeah,
thing
yeah.
that just kind of, I kept wondering to myself, why? What do the shoe people look like? Because she's the only one that they ever speak about. You know,
Mm.
is it? And please excuse me for saying this, but is it because she has Asian features? It is that, or do shoe people look Asian?
Oh,
Is that what they're going for?
that
Look,
makes the name shoe even more
but you see,
bad.
the thing is, there's no way to know. Now, of course, I automatically
Yeah,
went to a visual representation of her race, not because I
of
wanted
course.
to, but because there was no other explanation in the show for why she's a shoe and how people can immediately tell that she's a shoe by looking at her. So naturally, put two and two together, you have to assume there's a visual something on her that makes her look shoe.
It's kind of how Stargate did this better, where they explained that Earthlings are foundlings. They're Tenno something,
Okay.
and they're a type of human. There are many
Oh.
humans across the galaxy, but humans are this race, whereas the other people are the other race. So I assume this
That's
is
cool. I
supposed
didn't
to
know
be
that.
like that,
That's
you
cool.
know?
Yeah. Or
Yeah, and it's explained like that.
in the same token, you could almost look at Spock from Star Wars. I mean, Star
Yeah,
Trek. How his
yeah, yeah.
ears are
Star Trek.
up, so like that he's a Vulcan.
He's a little bit different.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a little bit slightly. So look, anyway, what I'm trying to get at is there's a lot of things that they just don't explain. And
Mm,
it's a shame because the show is only 8 episodes long, and I feel they could have easily pushed that maybe to 12 and then
mm,
added additional character building. So, one
mm,
of my other biggest issues with the show is character building through pacing. So, the show does this really weird change of time without actually telling you about it. So,
mm,
while you're watching, you're very much under the assumption that every episode is kind of like the next day. It sort of appears to play out that way. But in the first 5 episodes, where Alina is discovered to be the sun summoner, and I can't, I won't give, I mean, all of this is in the trailer, so it's not like I'm really like, ruining anything. And, the sun summoner has been, you know, prophesized for millennia, and they've never known when it would come because there's something called the fold, which separates two parts of this land. And the fold is dark because it was created by the dark heretic, which was a shadow bender. I know I'm going to use the word bender because a lot of the show
yeah.
reminded me a lot of Avatar.
Okay.
So, like in the show, the Grisha who have abilities, they basically bend stuff. So like you get air benders and fire benders, and you get a shadow bender, and now there's a sun bender, which is Alina Starkov in the show.
Mm,
So the thing is, like they talk about these things, but a lot of it really, really does get left on the cutting room floor. And what I mean by that is that, as in terms of the timing, as I was talking about, the first couple of episodes deal with her coming into her own, but without actually telling the viewer, years are passing. years, literal years in terms of her development. So the reason why that for me was a big problem and why the pacing was an issue is because they now have this super fast pacing with limited character development. And then you
Mm.
literally watch her go from loving her best friend to like forgetting about him because of something totally arbitrary. But of course, if you knew or were told that years were passing, of course, if you haven't heard from somebody in years, you would feel that way, no matter how much you
Yeah.
love them, you see?
Yeah.
And now, with that pacing in mind, there's another really big problem is that there are a lot of characters in this show. And when I say that there's a lot, there is a lot of narrative. So, although Alina's story of her being the Sun Summoner is the main arc throughout the show, there are so many side narratives. One, like there was one, for example, which has to do with three characters, namely Inej Gaffer, Kaz Becker, and Jesper Fahey, and they're known as the Crows, and they are on the western side of the fold, and Alina's on the eastern side of the fold. And bear in mind, the fold
Okay.
can't be crossed because if you go in it, you basically die. And you know, part of the story is how do you cross the fold? Anyway, I won't get into too much of it. It is very interesting from having said
I
that.
I know what the issue is now.
Yes.
So Leia Bardugo, the writer of Shadow and Bone, um, she wrote the Grisha trilogy, which are three books.
Yes.
She also wrote another trilogy called The Six of Crows, which happens
Yes.
2 years after the fact. Now, this seems to be like an amalgamation of the two.
So I thought that too, and I did some
Yeah.
reading, and it's not. So
Oh.
the Crows trilogy, which comes after this current trilogy, the Grisha
Yeah.
trilogy, is a totally unique story. So it just goes to show that the Crows are in the Grisha books.
But they call it a duology. And
It
they
would
say,
let me,
I don't
look,
know,
look.
it sounds like a
I
mess.
I have read a bit about, like I said, I've read about the books, and I know that
Mm.
what they did is the ones that specifically the three Crow books you're talking about that takes
Yeah,
place
yeah, yeah.
after the Grisha trilogy. Same characters that were introduced in the Grisha trilogy, and which are obviously
Hmm.
introduced in the show. But basically, like what you've said, what I'm getting at is that although they haven't taken from those books, because I think that's going to be a spin-off series. I mean, the reason why I say that is because a lot of time was dedicated in the first season to set up these characters, which don't look like they will continue for a second season. I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I have a feeling that there's probably going to be a spin-off because they're really great characters. But now this is the big issue is that at any one time there's probably about five narratives going at once. And
Mm.
that's normally not a problem if you take the time to set everything up. And that to me
Yeah.
is the biggest problem with Shadow and Bone is because they throw so much at you without explaining enough, and then and then will assume that you will care for these characters. Like there's one other storyline, and I've forgotten the names because we binged this thing in like 2 nights. I can barely remember these people's names, but it has to do with a heart render. So that's somebody who has the ability to they can touch you and they can tell you they can sense when you're lying by your heartbeat and they
Yes.
can make your heart explode and they can heal you. It's actually very cool. Anyway, and she gets kidnapped by some other faction, which is a group of humans who don't believe in the Grecians at all. They're like Vikings almost, and want to exterminate them. Well, everybody wants to exterminate the Grisha actually, but anyway, so they're like this offshoot, and I've forgotten their names, but they're like Vikings basically, like I said. And
Hmm.
there's like a love story between her and some guy like that. And it takes place over like 5 episodes, but the character building is so minimal, you just don't care. Like every time I saw them on screen, I was like, can we please watch more of Alina? Or can we please see more
Mm.
of Mel? Or can we please see more of General Kerrigan, who is so awesomely badass? Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
um, overall, it's a good show, but it suffers from very poor pacing and not enough building up of the character in the world.
Mm.
And it's a shame because it really could have been exceptional. So yeah, that's Shadow and Bone.
Um,
Watch it; it's pretty good.
it's decent.
Like I mean, like like the
I know
acting and
I'm gonna
stuff is
watch it.
good,
So.
and the narrative is decent, and sure, it's very much a young adult show, and it's obvious that they've made that in mind, but
Mm.
it's good. I mean, we all enjoyed it when we watched it, so yeah. Now, something
Okay.
that's also very good, and it has its own flaws, and Edward has also been enjoying it, is Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Very much. I've only seen the first episode though. To be
So,
fair.
again, finished the entire, well, I want to say first season, but I don't think there's going to be a second. It really seems like Disney are doing miniseries for their shows in between the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because it's quite clear there won't be a follow up to WandaVision. And with the
Okay.
way Falcon and Winter Soldier ends, I'm pretty sure there won't be another Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
I believe right at the as the final episode aired, they announced Captain America 4.
That's
So
it. So that's why
yeah.
there won't be a second season, because
Yeah.
the Falcon no longer exists.
Yeah, pretty much.
And everybody, I'm sure, has seen the media now. Anthony Mackie's character, the Falcon, takes on the mantle of being Captain America, and
Yeah, that's not a spoiler.
that's actually what the entire season is about. It's about how a person of color in the United States needs to battle adversity and, you know, awful ideology along the way to represent a more inclusive America. That is
Mhm.
that is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier in a nutshell. And it does a decent job of it. Sure, along the way there are some missteps, there's some unneeded exposition, or unneeded aspects that they talk about every now and again, and then they also, in my personal opinion, don't explore other characters enough. Like, I felt that Bucky Barnes, or Sebastian Stan's character, was really relegated to the side in this show, and I was genuinely interested in actually learning more about him. But I get why Anthony Mackie's character was the primary, and why he needed more exposition because of, as Edward said, Captain America 4 that's coming. But,
Yeah.
with that said, I personally feel that Winter Soldier is a far more interesting character than the Falcon. I just That's just my personal opinion. And I feel that there was
Yeah.
so much story there that they left on the cutting room floor because they had to push Captain America 4 versus embellishing these characters in what could have been, a series, maybe with a second or a third season.
That's cool.
Well, I mean, if we want to speak a little more about it, there's also Wyatt Russell, who was the fake Captain America. I don't know if you,
Oh yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and he ends up being Agent A, which I'd never heard of until this show. Uh, and then, and then there's also
Don't worry, neither
the
did I.
main protagonist, who the actress's name is Erin Kellyman, and you know, one thing I did really like was how they showed that very fine line between what it means to be a radical and a revolutionary.
Yes.
And I
Uh,
really did enjoy that exploration very much. I will admit.
That's
I will
cool.
admit. It's a great show.
Uh,
It's good visuals, good story. Every now and again it gets a bit wishy washy. And I feel that maybe the last two episodes, they try to bring a lot together. Like, when you're dealing with a narrative that is heavy on racial, stereotypes and progression, it is difficult to try and tie all of that momentous, you know, narrative in like an episode. So
yeah.
the last episode's it is wishy washy, but they still did a decent job, personally speaking, and I really enjoyed it. I'm actually very much, as I mentioned before, I've never really been a big fan of the Falcon, but after having watched the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'm actually so keen to see him in the role of Captain America 4. To be
Yeah.
absolutely honest, this show has given me that, like, yeah, you go, guy.
Like as I've said, I haven't seen all of them yet, but I have seen the models, the collectible toys that's coming now,
So
and
good.
how he
So
looks.
good. Yeah.
And he looks
But
amazing.
not
His
just
suit is so
not
good.
just that, it's also his character. So,
Mm.
for the longest time, the Falcon's sort of been relegated to like the B cast, you know,
Yeah, the
in the background.
the yeah, yeah.
So now he's
Shame.
at the forefront, and every now and again it seems a little bit forced, like the way that he'll say things, and you're a bit like, oh, that's very Captain America of you, but like, we get it, you know.
That's one liney, you know.
Yes. Now,
It's a
something
comic book.
that has nothing to do with superheroes or people or anything is the documentary My Octopus Teacher.
Yeah, I've
I don't know
seen.
if you heard about it.
I've heard about it. I thought it was some kitty thing. I
Right.
have no idea what it
So,
is.
My Octopus Teacher is very interesting. It's not new. It came around in 2020, Netflix exclusive in South Africa, but it is a South African made, produced, and filmed documentary. It takes place near False Bay in like a remote location there, and basically it's spearheaded by a man called Craig Foster, who is a documentarian,
Yeah.
and he found himself in a bit of a lull, like most people did, I guess, in 2020, and felt he needed inspiration, and so one of his outlets was to explore the oceans, go and swim a little bit. And he managed to find this beautiful, secluded spot. And in this spot, he came across an octopus who he eventually named rather lovingly Rosetta.
Rosetta. Okay.
And he would, over a period of 340 days, visit her every day and form a relationship with her. And this documentary chronicles this. Now, we have previously on Gettle spoken about cephalopods
Yeah.
and how absolutely incredibly intelligent they are. And this film really just compounds that notion of how incredible these creatures are and how little we know of them and how you are able to form bonds with them, even if they might not seem cuddly like a cat or a dog. And it is an absolutely incredible look into not only our oceans, but just nature in general. And it is a very good documentary.
Ooh,
I do recommend it. I almost
my
want to say it's exceptional. Almost. It won an
m-
Oscar, by the way, just in case anybody's wondering.
my only question now is, will he continue to visit her? Because now he's formed this bond.
Edward, no spoilers.
Okay.
If I tell you, let me just say, if you are a bit of a softy like I am, watch the documentary with some tissues. That's all I'm going to say about whether or not he will continue to go back to see her. With that said, it's not what you think. Um,
Okay, because I'm thinking things now.
yeah, I have to say that because the way that it ends, it does leave it somewhat open ended, but I don't want to spoil it because I do believe that it's a good documentary to, and it's not even that long. It's like an hour and a half. It's a
Mm.
lovely story. You know, about this man who felt that he lost himself and then found himself again through the love and affection of an octopus. I know that sounds like a story for hentai. That's not where I'm going. Um,
Yeah, it's just innocent. It's a good
yes,
story.
it's
Okay.
it was just it's just lovely. It's just lovely.
And I do like
Um,
documentaries, so I'll put it on my list.
okay,
So.
good. And if those of you, if you do, those who listen and watch, if you do end up watching it, please let me know what you think as well. And that goes for everything really, all the stuff that we
Mm.
discuss. And it was also quite funny because while we were watching it, my mother was like, we're not eating calamari anymore. We're done eating calamari."
Listen, I don't care what you name that cow, that octopus, whatever. I'll still eat it.
Well, this is
Okay.
literally what I said. Now, um, with that in mind, Edward, I have to ask. I have to ask this of you.
Yeah, yeah.
If given the option, would you eat yourself? Now, understand, I know this is not the NSFW section, and I don't mean autofellatio. All right.
No,
What-
no, I know. Like you mean like if I'm stuck
Actually, wait, wait,
somewhere
wait. No,
and
no.
I'm
Let's go.
without
Let's go
food.
back. Let's go back. Would you eat human meat?
In extreme cases, yes, I would.
Okay.
I'm not averse to surviving.
Okay,
You
but hold
know?
on. But okay, I mean in general. Let's say you went to, you could buy human in the shop.
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
If it's a choice, if I can survive, otherwise, yes, I wouldn't.
that makes sense. I think I feel similarly to you, where I don't know if I'd
Yeah,
want to eat human meat.
yeah,
Which
it's
again is also very hypocritical if you think about it, because we'll eat everything except human. and we have
Of
plenty of humans
course.
to go around. Anyway.
See,
Uh,
that's true. Uh, you've got a point there.
so where I'm going with this is, if you did, however, have
Hmm.
the opportunity to eat yourself, all right, again, not autofellatio,
Yeah.
that would be amazing, but not that. But you didn't have to be in a dire circumstance to do so, would you?
No.
Meaning, like let's say you could just cut a piece of your thigh off and cook it, and it wouldn't harm you. Like you just want to eat yourself. Is what I mean.
That sounds. I I'm imagining I've seen this in a movie somewhere, but no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. No,
I'm not
not by
sure.
choice.
I'm not sure either. Okay,
Yeah.
but I mentioned this because there is a
Yeah.
company called OroChef, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is using the concept of lab grown meat, which we have discussed several times in the past, how that is technically the future. It's actually, there's a special name for it. It's called cellular agriculture. Anyway, this company, it's either OroChef or OroChef, sell kits whereby you can grow your own meat in a petri dish and eat it.
See, but that's different. Uh,
Is
See,
it
now you're telling me I can create a clone finger and eat that
though?
instead of cutting my own finger.
Okay,
Yes,
look, it's not exactly. I
that's
mean,
different.
I mean, is it though?
I
Is
would
it?
do it just for science, okay? Just for the
See, now
experience.
now that's the interesting thing about it, because I kind of would want to know what I taste like as well. And
Yeah.
and and the reason why they're doing this, right, is because they say it is, and I quote, your cultivated self, sustainably, ethically, and consensually sourced cultivated foods.
You don't get more consensual than that. So, like, I mean,
You know, the thing is though, they assume, okay, that you're putting your cells in there to eat. But now imagine you're like obsessive, like a stalker, and you
oh
get
no,
like
man.
I'm
Why
just
does
putting
do
it
you
out there.
your mind is all like you season 4 or season 5 and
Well, I
gosh
mean,
damn.
that would be the natural progression, whereby this guy would eventually get cells from somebody that he's obsessed with, and then
Yeah, some chicken was
eat it.
wondering.
Oh, he'll just eat it
Oh,
every.
I'm getting goosies. This is weird. That's weird territory. But yes, I in this scenario, I would. Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, that's all I really wanted to speak about. Is just
Yeah,
whether or
okay.
not you'd eat yourself, and if you could cultivate your
Wow.
own flesh, would you? That is honestly something I'd love for you all who listen to respond. Like, would you? You know, Edward is inclined to do it. I guess I am. Of course, I do
Yeah, for
feel like,
science.
as I played devil's advocate just now, you know, they say that it's consensual and it's ethical, but like this could so be misused. Okay, so although I am a fan of cellular agriculture, where I do believe we should be manufacturing animal meats, because they don't get hurt. It's also more sustainable. It's better for the environment, and so on and so forth. Who knows? Maybe one day you'll walk into a Woolies and there is A grade Gettle beef, and it's myself and Edward, yours truly, on the store shelves.
See, we don't have stalkers because we sustain them from far away. We give them what they want.
Oh my gosh. Now, with that said, a couple of episodes back, actually, in Gettle 49, season 2, episode 7, we spoke about the descent and
Yeah.
how people had gone down into this cave for 40 days to do this, I think it was time experiment, to how the perception of
Deep
time.
deep time
All of
away,
a sudden
yeah.
I'm thinking they could curate their own meat down there.
That's
Like you.
exactly what I was thinking as well. That's
Anyway, so I'm bringing this up and I'm relating these two together because they have emerged,
Mhm.
and we have nothing to fear. There is no the descent scenario happening. Nobody has. Everybody made it out alive. They've all been accounted for, apparently, and it seems like the experiment was a success. Um.
See, this is what we've been told. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, do you
We
do you think there's something else behind the scenes,
I don't
perhaps?
know. I don't
Hey,
know.
Well,
We don't know what
postulate,
happened in
Edward.
there. We don't know if they cloned themselves and ate their own meat and became,
And
I don't
what?
know,
Well, what are the
monsters.
odds that I would discover Aro Chef after they emerge from there?
That's all I'm gonna.
Okay.
That's my point.
Look, what was really fascinating about this experiment is they actually spoke about little things, how they had to manage time without a perception of time, and how
Mm,
allegedly everybody started to sync up with each other. So like when everybody like when people started going to sleep, everybody would go to sleep.
mm.
Weird things like that, and they all had to rely on their like own circadian rhythms. And I'm just like, I was honestly like reading this and I'm thinking to myself, I would probably just sleep a lot
Yeah,
because like what else is there to do?
exactly.
Well, one guy apparently ran 10-kilometer circles underground. And I was just like, props to you for stinking up the joint. But anyway,
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Steve. Like,
Now,
yeah, I
on
don't
this
know.
topic of, cloning yourself and so on and so forth, I found something else also very interesting. And this is not exactly to do with the traditional aspect of cloning per se, but it has to do with AI bringing back people from the dead. Now, we
Okay.
have in cinema seen how, Disney has brought, Princess Leia back for,
And
other
Luke.
movies, and Luke Skywalker and so on and so forth. And we've often spoken about deepfakes to the point where I actually had a deepfake topic for this episode, but I've pushed it to a future one. Now, with that in mind, you know, and with deep fakes specifically on the mind, we've spoken about AI. Now, if you merge these things together, whereby you take an AI and then you take records of somebody, maybe a famous celebrity, and all of their works, could you technically recreate the celebrity for future audiences? Okay.
Maybe?
So this is where that whole ethical thing comes in, right? Where I know that, like Robin Williams, for example, he actually had a clause in his contract whereby when he passed, that was it. You can never use
Yeah.
his voice or his likeness ever again in any form of media. It's absolutely
Which
fantastic,
is,
and
yeah,
yeah, right.
I
Because
dig that.
I mean, look at what Disney's doing. That's all I'm saying. So I
Bringing
bring I bring
everyone
I
back.
bring this up now because I came across this thing called the Lost Tapes of the 27 Club. Now, for those who may not know, the 27 Club is this unofficial club where, over the years, specifically musicians, but it's also inclusive of actors, how many of them would die at the age of 27, most of the time through suicide. All right.
Mm.
There are a lot of people on this list, like Kurt Cobain and Amy
Amy
Winehouse
Winehouse.
and Jimi Hendrix, and there's a lot of people. So, what this the Lost Tapes of the 27 Club did is they used um, Google's Magenta AI and a generic neural network. Yeah, I didn't even know that Google had this thing called Magenta AI. But anyway, they used
Mm.
that with a generic neural network, and they took, for example, they took. Okay, they did this with several artists, right? So they did it with the guy from Nirvana and Amy Winehouse and Jimi Hendrix, and they took like 20 20 to 30 songs from each of them. They fed it into this AI that they created, and then they looked at the results. And what was incredibly fascinating about it is that the AI produced everything with the exception of vocals. So it did the backtracks, the audio pitches, and even the lyrics. And
That's cool.
Edward, it's frightening.
Yeah. But it's cool. Like, um, yeah.
No,
I don't know.
imagine this now. This is like we've done Gettle for this is our 54th episode. Now
Yeah.
imagine someone out there taking these 54 episodes of 2 hours in length, or plus minus like an hour and a half. They can effectively reconstruct us in AI.
Yeah. And using deepfakes, they could even make us look like we're talking.
Well, yes, because we also have video on YouTube. So
Yeah.
personally, I find it absolutely frightening. However, it is incredibly fascinating. And we will link in the show notes where you can actually go and listen to the songs that were created by this AI.
Yep.
And although they did one for Nirvana's frontman and Jimi Hendrix and Amy Winehouse, my personal favorite was the Amy Winehouse one. I mean, that one to me, if you didn't know any better, you would think, gosh, damn, that's Amy Winehouse.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, there is one caveat, and that is that because the AI doesn't do the voices, although they probably could, because we've spoken about deepfake voices in the past, they did take like cover artists, like people who do cover bands, of famous singers and things like that, and they got them to sing the lyrics that the AI generated.
Oh, I
And
see. I
yeah,
I thought they cut vocals from the 30 tracks up into bits and then
you see,
pasted it to
I
sound
think
good.
that would have been even more impressive. But
Yeah.
if you look at voice tech today, we aren't really at that point where
Mm.
it's smooth and flawless. You can hear it's
Yeah.
artificial.
Oh, okay.
So, but who knows? It's coming. I mean, the Queen
Yeah,
was deep faked.
that's
End of
that's
last year,
amazing.
remember? Her
Yeah.
entire
Yeah.
address was deep faked. The voice
So
and
is
the
Obama. Yeah.
so it's coming. Maybe they haven't done vocals for singing yet, but it could be on the way.
It's
What do
obviously
you
on the
what
way.
do you
Yeah.
guys think? What do you think of this? Like, do we now need to have special clauses in our life insurance to ensure that no one ever replicates us? Because hold on, wait. Here's a hypothetical. I just thought about it. What if you're one of these famous people and you cultured your meat to eat and you love eating yourself, and then you die, but you didn't have a non-disclosure agreement? Now people have workable cells to clone you and generate your your likeness.
Everything about you, essentially. This is some of the island shit. This is where that began. You know, obviously those were clones,
you know,
but
I've thought about that. Like this might sound really bad, but I would if I had the money, clone another version of myself for parts.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I will say yes because
Listen, say what you will about the movie The Island, okay? But those rich people, they had good ideas. I would totally
this is
make a clone of
this is
myself and
this is
harvest it for a
this is
kidney.
this is us doing that whole Thanos had a point thing.
Yeah, dude. Well, we
Look,
did. Okay.
if memory serves, last year we had a very similar discussion about the ethical quandaries around creating a clone of yourself because
Yeah.
you know let now assuming of course you see if you cloned yourself in full with brain and all, you would have to
Mm.
assume that that thing has a soul. You'd have to, because how else
Yeah.
would it be alive? But what if you cloned it without a brain? Is it still alive? Anyway, topic for
Mm.
another day.
That's a yeah. That,
Now,
we're getting
now,
into
of course,
deep
what
topics.
if the clones come out deformed and so on and so forth? Now, with deformities, and I don't mean them in negligent or negligible ways. What I mean by that is the flashed face distortion effect. Everybody,
Okay.
I see Edward's face. He's just like, what is this now? Because we just talked about
Yeah.
deformities and not having a brain and eating yourself. What else is
All
this?
I'm seeing, all I'm seeing is discovered by accident. Now I'm wondering like
Yeah.
how.
Okay,
Like,
okay, okay. So the flash face distortion effect is very
yeah.
disturbing. And as Edward just mentioned, it was literally discovered by accident. How somebody did I'm a bit perplexed myself as to know. Because so essentially what it is the following. It's a visual illusion, right? Where you'd be looking at, let's say, a white rectangle with a face on the left and a face on the right, and in the middle is a black cross. And what
Yeah.
happens is you keep your visuals on the black cross, and then the faces on the left and the right continue
It
to
should.
fluctuate between a variety of
Yeah.
other faces. And in this sense, for the study, they used actors' faces because actors are generally good looking. And what actually ends up happening is those faces become distorted and end up looking monstrous as they flick and switch in your peripheral vision.
Uh, okay.
Again, how they discovered this, nobody knows, but somehow they did. And the fact is, the most interesting about it is that it's all new. It's new science. They don't know why this happens. And the reason why they're finding it so fascinating is because generally, the human brain and our ocular system is exceptional at picking out patterns and faces and things. So the fact that we've now discovered an optical illusion or visual illusion where the brain cannot pick up correctly the switching of faces in our peripheral vision is it's mind-boggling. People, the scientists are like, how, why, what is going on?
Mm, that's dope. That it sounds super scary though, but it's
Listen,
maybe
Edward,
that's like what we really look like,
look.
you know?
Okay, so I will link to a video where you can all go and try it out, and I implore you to do so because it's really just it's fascinating. Now, when I did it, and I did this video, I thought to myself, how often do we sometimes catch glimpses of things in our peripheral vision? Like a good example for me is I've always had pets. So when we lost our home to the fire and we moved into the apartment, I would every now and again always see or seem to see in my peripheral vision a cat, but we didn't have one at the time. I'm not saying all the time. I'm not going crazy here, y'all.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm just saying, it was every every like once in a while, like, I'd be doing something, and I think the familiarity of the situation would make me think my cat's there. But obviously
yeah.
she's not, she perished in the fire. Until of course we got Cobalt. Now that's different. Having Cobalt around, and actually it was him all the time. That like fake illusion disappeared, if that makes sense. So then I had to wonder, what about people who see weird things? See things in the dark, or like, things that your overactive imagination, or then again, how reliable is our, brain and ocular systems really in the heat of seeing something like, let's say you're running through a mall. Now those are
Yeah.
faces going past you. Like how quickly would you be able to ascertain somebody's facial features, to
Mm.
explain who it was? Or look, again,
Mm.
I'm now reaching, because obviously the things that I'm talking about now are very different. This
Yeah,
particular study is literally, they call it eye aligned, whereby the eyes of the faces are aligned with the cross in the middle. So it's eye aligned, and it needs to be eye aligned, otherwise the effect doesn't happen.
mm.
You see, so it's very interesting, and again, adding to this, it's called it's part of scientific phenomenology, right? Which has to do with the psychological aspect of it
Phe-
before the neurological theories can take place. And this is why, again, it's so fascinating, because they discovered this before understanding how it could neurologically happen, which makes it even more
That's cool.
important.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually found out so many more interesting things about this. How like the human, our faces and the brains, and that can actually see even faces upside down, like quickly in terms of recognition, and yet
Hmm.
this is causing us to be confused. As if you're seeing grotesque zombies on
Like
in your
the
weird peripheral vision.
like the ring shit. Yeah. On the topic of zombies, by the way, and I think that was you leading
You're
into
welcome.
it, because again, I'm bad at these things. Um, yeah, we've been speaking about cloning and grotesque stuff pretty much all episode now. I found the most fascinating thing. Okay. Um, so I was actually following another post, which I wanted to. I was thinking of talking about, which is this Russian guy who accidentally found himself in a Chinese reality show, and he just wanted out, and no one
I
would vote him
saw
out.
that. I saw that. Anyway.
Yeah, shame. Anyway, so I was following that story to see how it unfolds, and then I came across this as a recommendation. Thanks, Reddit. Um, and it's fascinating, and that it's real
Oh,
is mind
what?
boggling.
No.
So,
I mean,
yeah,
I mean, I saw your heading. You're just like Russian zombie super soldiers, and I'm just like,
yes,
of all the things. Okay, tell me, Edward, because I
of
have
all
not
the
read
things
ahead,
that
so I
could be
don't know what this
real,
is about.
this
Okay.
is. So, um, a few decades ago, archaeologists found DNA of perfectly preserved Scythian warriors. Now, that's basically ancient
S-
Siberian warriors.
Oh, I was just about to ask. I was
Um,
like, what is a Scythian warrior? All right.
yeah, it's ancient Siberian.
Okay.
They found perfectly preserved. So I guess they were mummified, in a
Oh,
sense.
kind of like
Uh,
the mammoth. It was like frozen in place,
yes,
almost like flash frozen.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and it's super cold in Siberia, so I guess that's
Oh my gosh,
essentially
it's
what it
all the
was.
same place.
Yeah, it's all the same. It's all up there.
I wonder if they rode, because I see, you telling me that they're this breed of like superhuman or whatever. I wonder if they rode mammoths.
I don't know. They were buried with their horses,
Oh,
so
okay.
these
I
were
mean,
like
it
super
says 3,000
hardcore.
years old, so who knows, right? Who knows?
Yeah, we wouldn't know. Maybe they fought against the people who wrote the
Probably
mammoths.
ate them.
Anyway, probably. So it turns out that the current Russian defense minister, his name is Sergei Shoigu. I know that's not how you spell it, but that's how you pronounce it.
That's perfectly fine. We
Uh,
all know you're learning Russian, so
so he recently came across this find and decided that the best course of action to do with this perfectly preserved DNA would be to clone them, make them alive, and turn them into super soldiers.
bravo. Bravo. You have my
Like
approval. Hans Haupt approves. As y'all know, I'm all for the genetic revival of dinosaurs, and if getting them is
an ancient
is
human
is
being.
raising some superhumans, let's go.
This is some Dothraki shit. That's all I'm gonna say. Like, um, essentially, the point of his whole speech. Now, I'm not gonna. I don't think I have the whole speech. I have a link to it. The point of his entire speech is essentially to say that we have perfect for the first time in Russian history or
Yes, yes.
Eurasian history, we have perfectly preserved warriors. Um, we've always had skeletons and mummified
Yeah, yeah.
parts of bodies.
Like bits and bobs of things, never
He
enough to actually make something from.
exactly now he this is so well preserved. He wants to see what we can do in terms of cloning, and if it will be able to
Now,
create super soldiers in the first
okay,
place.
why do they keep saying super soldier?
Because that's what
Like,
he
I mean,
wants
I
to
mean,
do.
okay, no, but hold on,
I
hold on.
think it's because
Look, they're Scythian warriors, right?
yeah.
What makes them special? Are they like larger than normal men? Are they? I mean, like, I understand why they'd want to clone them to see what people
uh
of 3,000 years ago would look like or
yeah.
perform like. But what makes them super? That's what I'm wondering here.
See, I don't really know much about the history of Russia and Siberia and all that, but I think maybe they were world conquering warriors, and that's what the point
Maybe it's
is.
kind of like thinking about cloning original Vikings, right? Because weren't they
Yeah,
really big people?
yeah,
Like
they
bigger
were
than the
huge
people
people. Yeah.
today? I stand to be
hmm
corrected.
No, you're correct. That they were tall people, so huge is just
Like
a
like
byproduct
we're talking
of
about like
that. So
7 foot kind of thing, right?
yes,
You see
so
now.
I
So
think
you
this is
see
the same.
now if that is what we're going with, hulking brutes who have like like
Like,
testosterone filled and like the ladies can bear children left, right, and center and are also super strong and powerful just like the men.
like,
It would
listen, I'm
be
all for this,
it would
but
be in
it's
yes, I want to see. I want to see what they look
yeah,
like. But
yeah.
do you mean that he wants to do more with them though? Or like what is the whole purpose here?
So the whole purpose, at least his speech, is just saying that we want to clone them and make them alive. Now, according to the Daily Mail, they have sources and they say he wants to create an army out of this clone, out of these clones he's got to create.
Okay, so
Um,
so two things, two things.
mhm,
He's falling into the super soldier serum, right? Which comes from Captain America and the Winter Soldier and Captain America 4.
essentially, yeah,
And now the Clone Wars from Star Wars a la the Mandalorian.
yep. That's that's pretty much exactly what it is. To a T,
Those of you who are
actually.
listening, please note we
So
don't plan these episodes. The fact that this is all lining up so wonderfully is really great.
so the thing is, whether he's going to go through with it or not is a different story, because it might only be a political ploy at the end of the day. It might just be empty
I think
promises.
I think there'll be a lot of ethical red tape. I mean, imagine
Yeah.
this government bringing these people back. Like they would have to answer where did they get their eggs from? Where did because you see, I understand, right, that
Mm.
having the DNA of these people doesn't now mean they can make sperm and eggs to create something. They can only take the DNA from these bodies or whatever, and then
Yeah.
imbue them into other human cells that they still need to harvest from
Well,
someone or something else. You see?
well, they can't give consent until one of them is born and able to speak. So they
No,
kind of
no.
need
Anyway,
to
look,
get
this
around it.
this is fascinating.
It's super
I
fascinating.
I want to know what they look like so that we can size them up to us today.
Scythe them up, if you will. The thing is, what makes this even more fascinating is that Shoigu, he has the support of Vladimir Putin already in his court,
But of course, Vladimir
and
is going to support him. This guy is already poisoning tea left, right, and center. What's to say?
exactly,
Of course,
and
he
now
wants
he's
super
already,
soldiers to do his bidding.
and he's superstitious as well because he's already ordered a shaman to be at every single excavation they pull these bodies from. Um,
My
so
goodness, this is just
I don't know. This sounds like some evil genius shit.
you know what this
Okay,
you know what this sounds like. This sounds like the news narrative for a future Wolfenstein game.
yeah,
Except
it
instead of
does.
Nazis, it's going to be Scythian soldiers or Scythian warriors.
Yeah, yeah, like Wolfenstein going north or whatever. It really does.
Well, Edward,
Um,
that's cool. All right. Now
yeah.
on to NSFW. I wanted to make a lewd joke about, the size of the genitals these people might have. After last week's episode with the phthalates and how they're making penises smaller, you can only imagine that maybe they're like boom, donkey size.
Like huge. Well, I think they are, to be fair.
No, I don't know. We don't know, do we? I mean, we've never had like a real, like physically preserved human from that so long ago. We only have like the
Yeah,
skeletons to base off of. So
exactly.
I don't know, Edward. What I do know is that you have a story of people sticking their penises in bottles. So here we
So
are. And it's not the kind of
yes,
genie that's going to rub you the right way for.
that I think I might have found the penis in a bottle origin story, Ants.
I've heard of
Which
a wish in a bottle, okay, and a message in a bottle, but this is the first for the penis in the
that reminds
bottle.
me of that Weird Al song, "Weenie in a Bottle," which is just a play of genie in a bottle.
Yeah, yeah.
It's such a good song. Anyway, so I found a post from IFL Science.
Best.
They're very good. Where they found notes from 1849 of a man who had his penis
Listen,
stuck in the
this
neck of
is
a bottle.
this is that Tom Cruise movie time period. So, sorry, not
Yeah,
Tom
it
Cruise,
is.
Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks movie
Yeah,
time
Tom
period.
Hanks. Tom
Yeah,
Hanks.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so 1840s, this guy be sticking his PP in bottles. Okay.
So it turns out that it might not have been on purpose. At least
Oh
the
wait,
sticking
you
in the
mean
bottle part.
you mean it wasn't for pleasure or?
No, it was for relief in a different way, and that is for peeing.
For urinating,
Now,
okay.
we all know the cliche of when you go on a long drive, you need to pee, but you can't stop. You just pee into a bottle. Turns out that
No.
well, that's the
I was
cliche.
just gonna say, because if this is the 1800s, I'm quite
Mhm.
sure there wasn't plumbing. So he was just too
Wait,
lazy to
hold on.
leave the house to pee
Pretty
in the open
much.
fields.
That's pretty much what happened. So this young guy, he woke up one night and he really needed to pee. He found a bottle in his quarters, which turns out was meant for experiments. Um, he opened it up, he put his pee on the edge, and then boom flash, it's sucked inside, and everything's burnt. Now, now, I'm gonna read you the doctor's notes on this, okay? Because it's fascinating.
Okay, okay.
Okay, I quote. A few months ago, I was called in great haste to a young gentleman who was in a most ludicrous yet painful condition. I found, on examination, a bottle holding about a pint, with a short neck and small mouth firmly attached to his body by the penis, which was drawn through the neck and projected into the bottle, being swollen and
Ow,
purple.
it's so
Now,
sore.
I would not It sounds painful. Now, what makes it even more painful is the fact that it's only 1.9 centimeters in diameter. For our American
Ooh,
listeners,
that's
that's 0.7
tiny.
inches. That's
Shame.
Coke bottle size.
I
Okay.
think smaller, isn't it?
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's
either way, that's small,
it's
even
tiny.
for a flaccid penis.
Yeah, there even for now. What caused this? Turned out that it was potassium. There was potassium in the bottle, and obviously we all know potassium is a chemical compound, and if it comes into contact with other compounds, let's say
It
urine,
you
it
it
explodes.
oh my
Okay,
it
but not in the way you would think. It,
it
it doesn't make a
reacted.
boom. It makes a flash and it vacuums. So the moment this guy put the tip of his penis onto the bottle and started peeing, he burned. It made a
Oh
flash, a
my
burning
god.
flash, and he vacuumed his penis into the bottle. And
It's zero for man, plus one for science.
literally, it's so bad.
That
And the
you
point of the story,
yeah, yeah.
I guess, is that not to be lazy and to just go pee in a
Or
toilet or
wait,
go
no,
outside.
hold on. You know what? This wafts of I fell and that's why I have a lava lamp in my butt.
I know.
Okay.
That's why I got into this in the first place. This is the
'Cause I'm thinking this is more like he was at somebody else's home because think about it. If this was
Mhm.
his, he should know what's in the bottles. Now, that's not to say that maybe he didn't think there'd be a reaction. Maybe he's not that intelligent, but what else did he have potassium in a bottle for? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe one of two things. Maybe he just was, groggy in the middle of the night, you just need to pee, so you grab whatever you can find. Or he was having some good times at somebody else's house, okay, and picked up
Mm.
one of whatever scientists was there, goodies, and then ended up with this situation.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's more than
Plausible.
actually what happened. Because gosh, if you read further into the doctor's notes, he explained the way the vacuum worked, which is by saying the first jet of urine was followed by an explosive sound and flash of fire. And quick as thought, the penis was drawn into the bottle with a
Oh,
force and
wow.
tenacity which held it as firmly as in a vice. Now, this sounds
Did he just
painful.
leave it like that though? Or did he I
He,
mean, like
no,
if he
he called the doctor after that.
so but why didn't he just smash the bottle?
I don't know. I don't think you would
I
think about
suppose
that.
in the
Like
well,
this glass
I don't think he
bottle.
was thinking at all. I mean, if my penis got sucked into a bottle like that, I think I'd just be screaming.
Yeah, you'd be
And then
panicking.
like everybody comes around, what's going on? My penis.
Yeah, my penis is in the bottle, and
It
no
got
one will
sucked
believe
in.
in. No one will believe you
No,
that you burned the
that's
shit
when
out
the
of
parents
yourself.
come in and are like, we told you not to do that, Jeremy. It's like the 1800s version of a vacuum cleaner.
That's exactly what it is.
What if he heard? What if he heard? No, no shame. Let's go with naivete. Because I was going to say, what if he heard that, pee reacts and it causes a suction and he thought that he would use this suction for a good time?
Listen, if he's 18 years old and living in a flat, I would believe that. I
Then
would
again,
believe 100%
no,
he
but then
just did
again,
it for the
with an
find.
under 2 centimeter opening, you'd be a damn right fool to be putting it anywhere near there
I
other
don't know,
than to
put some
pee.
Vaseline on there and.
Oh my goodness, Ed, jeez. Well,
Yeah,
moving on from what penises in a bottle
yeah.
to vaccines. Hey,
Okay, that's a
so
good.
is it? So this was a bit of an interesting one to me. Um, I'm sure you've heard of HPV,
Yes.
the human papillomavirus, but the human papillomavirus,
Papular virus, yeah.
papillomavirus, okay, or papillomavirus. I probably spelled it incorrectly there.
Papular or
So
something.
it's a viral infection, and it normally happens through skin to skin contact, and it is also one of the most common STIs. What
Hmm.
makes it dangerous, or HPV dangerous, is that it can cause cancer, and that there are actually over 40 variants of the hundreds of variants that are available in the world that can lead to throat, nose, mouth, and even cervical cancer. And the reason why
Hmm.
you can say all of this is because obviously, cunnilingus, going down, that kind of thing between partners. Obviously, any kind of oral sex, this is how you can transmit it. But in addition to that, you can
Yeah.
also get genital warts, meaning that you can just transmit it that way as well. Now, I have, every time I've heard about HPV, I've heard about it from a lady's perspective, meaning that there is a vaccine out there and it is highly, highly recommended for all women under the age of 21, as it so happens, actually anybody under the age of 40, to be honest.
Hmm.
Um, can go for this vaccine to help prevent you from getting cervical cancer. Like it legit stops you from getting cancer if you contract this. It's amazing. Everybody should be getting this vaccine. Or well, everybody that at the time I thought could only be women.
Yeah.
As it so happens, men should go for the vaccine as well. It's not just exclusive to women. Apparently, the vaccine works for men and women, even though it's only primarily discussed with regards to women and cervical cancer. And the reason
Okay.
why this is now gaining some traction is because um, of all the cancers that can come about from HPV, one of them is oropharyngeal cancer. And it is one of the leading causes of cancer by HPV, and it
Yeah.
occurs in over 80% of
It,
cases in men. In other
which is
words,
bad.
men who have this kind of cancer, 80% of them come from the fact that they have HPV. And the reason why this is significant is because this new research is showing that men are actually more predisposed to this kind of cancer than women are for even cervical cancer because of HPV, meaning
Wow.
that men need to get vaccinated with the HPV vaccine. It's not just for
Mm.
ladies. So it blew my mind a little bit because I have all the literature I've seen has been HPV for women cervical cancer. That's it. That's what you always hear. And I thought, oh, well, it's cool. I don't have to get it. Uh, what would be the benefit of me getting it as a man, right?
Exactly.
Well, as it so happens, it's very beneficial to you as a man because it means that A, you don't get it, B, you won't transmit it, and C, you also will reduce your chance of getting cancer that is HPV related. And why this is not common talk is I don't know, I don't understand it. I don't know why they're saying it's a lady only vaccine and why only young girls should get it and so on and so forth. This is a human issue. Humans
Yeah.
get cancer. Everybody should be getting this, regardless of the gender.
This
So,
goes back to
yeah.
what we spoke about the other day, about the non-gender specific
Yes, it's pointlessly
vaccines and
gendered.
stuff, and
Yes.
yeah, medications and stuff. Yeah.
Look, I understand why this has been labeled as a young girl's vaccine, because
Yeah.
of the
Yeah. Yeah.
cervical cancer, so
Mm.
on and so forth. But that's also misappropriating what the vaccine does. I mean, I
Exactly.
didn't even know that it would be effective in men. I mean,
Mm.
I guess through the ignorance that I was formerly ignorant about the situation, thinking that it wouldn't make a difference. Maybe if I caught it, I could pass it on, but it wouldn't. It doesn't make a difference to me. But it does.
Yeah.
HPV affects everybody, and everybody can get cancer from it. This is the big thing. This is what they're talking about here. And the other super interesting thing is that most people don't even realize they can get HPV. It's that common. The good news, though, is that about 90% of HPV infections go away within 2 years on their own, but it's that
Mm.
lingering 10% of those 40 cancer-producing strands that you have to
Which
worry
goes.
about. And
Yeah.
40%. I mean, 40 out of 100 strands. I mean, that's a lot. That's almost 50% of a chance if you think about it.
Yeah. That's huge.
Basically
Yeah.
everybody should be being vaccinated against this. And I did more reading into it as well, and it turns out that we're eligible, Edward. Anyone under the age of 40, as far as I understand, even older. The effectiveness has been proven at almost any age, as long as you haven't already been exposed to it. And even if you have, it does. I think it does help, or rather, I think from what I remember reading is that the reason why they don't suggest it for people over a certain age is because they assume you've already got it, but you might not.
Mm.
So that you should get checked. And then this is where
Yeah.
a further interesting thing comes in. And I stand to be corrected, but from this article that I read, it turns out that there actually isn't an easy DNA test for men for HPV, but there is for women.
Wouldn't it just be the same as women,
No,
though?
apparently it's not. Apparently the same test that can determine cancer-causing HPV in women, it's a DNA test, cannot be used for men for some reason. And
Wow.
I thought that was once again very strange.
Yeah, it's
Again, all
weird.
the more reason to get vaccinated, y'all. Now, and of course, bear in mind, I mean, I'm not saying they can't tell it at all. It's just
Mm.
that, specifically for the cancer causing ones, there isn't actually a reliable DNA test like there is for ladies and cervical cancer.
Mm.
So it's very, very interesting.
Yeah,
I'm actually
jeez.
legitimately considering going and getting it.
Yeah, so am I.
No,
Like,
for real.
it's good just getting
Because I
yourself
mean,
checked and all, you know?
you know, if we haven't been active in a very long time, and everybody knows, ain't nobody be getting nothing unless you're in a monogamous relationship, and even then, you're probably just with each other, so you're okay. But you could both get it and then not have to worry about it. You know, the vaccine. I mean,
Mm.
never have to worry about these
Yeah,
kinds
yeah,
of
yeah.
issues. You know, just in case somebody's. Anyway, we're going to go down that awful path.
Yeah, let's not.
So yeah,
Yes.
that's that, and it brings us to the end of
Jeez.
NSFW. Here we go, Ed. That is the end
Jeez.
of Gedel 54, season 2, episode 12.
Yeah, and I'm having a health crisis at my
Just a
hands.
little bit,
Like,
right? Like I'm genuinely, like, no jokes. When I saw this, 'cause I discovered this, I think it was late yesterday. I started Googling, is it covered by medical aid? And even if it isn't, how much does it cost? And is it available here? Because here in SA, the rhetoric is woman only, girls only.
yeah,
So
yeah,
now that I know about this, and once again, please note, we speak about things, but you need to do your own research. So please don't accept
yeah.
what we say in any of our
Always.
episodes as medical advice because it's not.
Yeah,
Just saying, just saying. Um, it's interesting. You know, we need to know more. I mean, I'm all for the vaccine, right? I specifically want like the Pfizer BioNTech one for COVID. But I think the Johnson and Johnson is the big one in South Africa at the moment. Unfortunately, because I am under the age of 40, I think we're only eligible in October because the South
mm,
African rollout is dismal, to say the least. But at least
yep,
if you're 60 and over, you can start registering now for your interest for possible vaccination at the end of May. That's for COVID. Now, of course, this HPV one, we can go at any time, I assume. So I actually
yeah,
want to
yeah.
find out and I want to possibly go for it because I want to be protected against cancer. I mean, who doesn't, right?
Gosh, yes. Jeez.
Right? Of all the things, like like I know we've previously spoken about the cancer vaccine coming along, which is fantastic, but that's many years away still. But if you could even take something now that could prevent you from getting a cancer, why not? That sounds like a
Yeah.
no-brainer to me, you
Jeez.
know? Yeah,
Just
okay.
be safe.
As safe as possible. But
Yeah.
you say that, right? But the thing is, even if you had to use prophylactics, you could still transmit it through your mouth.
Yeah.
So, I
That's the
mean,
worst part of it,
that's the thing. It is
which
it is
makes
a
it
legit STI.
that makes it even more dangerous,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Well, on that note,
Now that bombshell.
thank you all for listening to another episode of Giddle. It's been
Mhm.
wonderful to have you all. If you have anything you'd like us to cover or to say, or anything really, please do reach out. We love hearing from you.
Yeah.
And until the next time you listen to us, we hope you all have a fantastic Star Wars week. And with that said, may the fourth be with you. Over and out.
Bye.